The Tomer Devorah, which is Perik Beis, Daf Lamed Beis, or page 32, the regular Tomer Devorah that we use. We're up to Hashniya, the paragraph Hashniya. The Perik Beis again is already when we have concluded. We have concluded Perik Aleph, which dealt with the Yud Gimel Midos, and now we are continuing further in Perik Beis, the direction of the Tomer Devorah regarding further aspects of a halachta v'dracha. There are so many midos which encompasses a yid that there is, when we finish Yud Gimel Midos, and we thought we had sort of mastered all of the midos toivos in order to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we find out that there are quite a number of additional midos. And in Perik Beis he elaborates on those, and he started last week, we had, which was the Rishonim, which was the Midah of Anova. And the Tomer Devorah described it that the Midah of Anova is the all-encompassing Midah. Just could I to mention, which we didn't have the opportunity last week to conclude, is the Mile of Anova that the Tomer Devorah is talking about. It's fascinating that the Chidah, of course the famous Chidah, in his Sefer Shem HaGdolim, let's be reminded that the Chidah basically lived over 200 years ago. And the Chidah writes a fascinating thing, that we all know that the Mechaber of the Shulchan Aruch was the Beis Yosef. The Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, is the Mechaber of the Shulchan Aruch, that which has been accepted in Klal Yisrael ad hayoim hazeh as being the direction, the greatest authoritative source in how a yid conducts his life on a daily basis. Shulchan Aruch, which is a combination, of course, then came the RaMaK, and together, this is what we call Shulchan Aruch. So the Chidah tells us something fascinating behind the scenes. And the Chidah writes it, and he says, Da, I want you to know, Shekibalti me'odom godel b'chochma. He says, I have a kabballah, I have information that I heard from a great person, Godel b'chochma b'yira, and that person, Shekibel, he was mekabelit, me'rav Godel, Shekibel mizakadim. So this goes back a kabbalah mipi-ish, ki b'doyrei she Rabbi Yosef Karo, that in the generation of the Beis Yosef, Rabbi Yosef Karo, hoyu chayim shloishe rabbonim shohoyu re'uyim lechaber sefer kei Beis Yosef. In the generation of the Beis Yosef, actually he was not the only one who had the capability of writing the Shulchan Aruch. There were three other Gedolah Hador, three. There were three Gedolah Hador that also had the similar ability to write the Shulchan Aruch, and they could have written it. Chiyakabes letoichoi, to write a sefer, to collect in it kol adinim, la'asuke shematis alibed hilchase, and to bring down the halachas according to halachah. Who do you think they are? Some not everybody may have heard of, but they are very well known. Ve'elohem, one is the great Mekubal Rabbi Yosef Teitzak. Rabbi Yosef Teitzak, there's a parasha b'fnei atzmo, kedai to talk about him as well, but Rabbi Yosef Teitzak was also a great individual who even had his own mahalach and certain shittas in Kabbalah. He reigned as one of the great Baal Mukubolim, Rabbi Yosef Teitzak. The other one was the Mahari Bar Lev. To give you an idea, the Mahari Bar Lev, the Marsha, in many places in Shas, comes to mind is in Masechtas Kedushin, Perik Aleph, quite a number of places. Hiksha Mahari Bar Lev. The Marsha refers to the Mahari Bar Lev. Marsha offers terutzim. But Rabbi Yosef Bar Lev, when the Gedolah Hador, and he says, Rabbi Yosef Karo. No, so here you had, if you will, three great people who vied for the position or for the glory, for the privilege, to write the Shulchan Aruch. Says the Chidah, v'hiskimu min hashamayim, shetinosein das, you should give it, he says, lemoron Rabbi Yosef Karo. And the Shemayim, they were maskim, although there are quite a number of others who have the ability to write the Shulchan Aruch, writes the Chidah, but min hashamayim, they were maskim, they say, you know what we're giving it? We're giving it the mantle. We're giving this mantle of authority to be mechaber the Shulchan Aruch to Rabbi Yosef Karo. Yechabreu. Why? Why? They were all great. It's not that he was greater. But the answer is Hayos, because because in the middle of Anova, he shone out, he stood out. He was mitzdayin in Anova, in the middle of Anova, more than the others. And the Chidos says, Kashinira Misvora Vagdoshim. You can see by the type of Lashonis, the way an author writes. And you see the attitude that he has towards other poskim. You see the way he reacts to other poskim, even if he disagrees with them. You can see the type of respect when someone writes to others. And you see that it's not just his opinion, but also the other opinion as well. And one follows in the writings of the Beis Yosef, it comes through, which shines through, is the great anivus of the Beis Yosef. She'ein darkoi l'saper mishe poisek mishe begrus mishe poisek like a moiser. The Beis Yosef will not embarrass or shame or write anything derogatory for anyone who paskins not like him. Therefore, the teaching of the Beis Yosef is called Mishnas Chasidim. That's Mishnas Chasidim of a true Chosid. So you see, halacha Rabbi Isai is something that you need siyata d'ishmai. Halacha is not totally just in chochmas odom and being a great genius or being a great intellectual. Of course, all have to be gedolei Torah. There's no question about it. But just because one is a great Baal Kishur, or just because one is a Gadol B'Torah, does not mean that he'll have this Yad D'Shmaya to be Mecham L'Halocha. What's the riot? You have 10 Gedol Torah, and they each have a different psak. Why? Is it because this one's a greater goal? No. The answer is because, in terms of being Mecham L'Halocha, at least what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, his Maneinu, at least this should be the Halocha, you have to have a particular Yad D'Shmaya. And therefore it's not always black and white, because many people have a certain posik and others. And then there are general poskim that stand out shoulders and above, which Klal Yisrael has accepted as being the reigning supreme authority. You have that also. And even then there are opposition. Your God is not my God, and so on and so forth. But this was the idea that in the Shemayim, they granted that schus to be mechaber the Shulchan Aruch, was the Yosef Kar was Sosa the Chidah because of his anivus. Give us again a picture. A little bit with the Tomer Devorah spoke about last week that we talked about was the all-encompassing midah. The first one that he said is the midah of Anova, to emulate Hashem in that area. It's also fascinating that the Chidah also writes, Shomati Rav Zoke. He said, I heard from a Rav Zoke, Ki mikubel biyodoi, that it's mikubel shebemei Reb Shlomo Luria. Who is Reb Shlomo Luria? That's the Marshal. He says that there is a kabballah that in the time of the Marshal was a Gadol Ador in his own right. He says, Hoyetachas beis midrashay chanus yirokis. Underneath the beis medrash, in other words, beis medrash must have been elevated, and there was a store selling yirokis, vegetables. So there was a vegetable store underneath the beis medrash of the Marshal. Chido writes this. And he said, the Baal HaChanus and the owner of the store, his name was Rabbi Noach. This Rabbi Noach, if you looked at him, you thought all he knows how to do is to sell apples and oranges and yirokis and vegetables. That's all he is. He was a hidden Gadol. No one knew about it. Ish tzenua, v'shokeh, calm, quiet, reserved. V'dovar ein lo yimshum adam. He doesn't have any masamatim with anybody. He goes about his business. That's all he does. Keeps to himself. Chanus zu shimshaloi gam ledira bochai. This is also where he lived. It's not like people say they live in one place, then they rent out a store someplace else. That was his house, that was his dira, that was his chanus, that was his store, everything. So the Chidah says something incredible. He says, one night, he says, the Marshal gets up earlier than usual, sort of like in the middle of the night. And he hears a voice. What kind of a voice does he hear? He hears a voice, none other than the vegetables merchant. The vegetable soicher. He hears a voice, and what is he doing? He's learning a sugya amuka, something which the Marshal could not fathom that this person has a shaykhis b'chal to this type of a sugya. To any kind of learning, for that matter. And here the Marshal, this person did it quite early. Marshal got up earlier than usual, and he happens to hear. And he hears the voice of this Rabbi Noach, that he's learning a sugya amuka, and he's explaining it, he says, with amkus, and with a brightkeit, with tremendous insight. And the Marshal Poshet, he couldn't believe it. The Marshal, who here Gishma'ato, and the Marshal now realized, Ki Rabbi Avram had snua that this Avram, this hidden Rabbi Avram, is a Gavra Rabbi. He is a great man. What did Mashal do? The Mashal sends a shliach. The Mashal sends a shliach to ask Rabbi Avram, She'elo amuke b'shas. To ask him, see what he has to say about a very difficult child in Shas. The shliach comes to Rabbi Avram and says, the Mashal sent me to ask you this and this, a very difficult child. Hey, Shaloi Rabbi Avram, so Rabbi Avram answers, he's asking me. He answers, Ki hu amoritz v'lo yodam akom Rabban. He says, I'm an amoritz. He says, you're asking me? What do I know? I don't know anything. He was still playing the role of an amoritz. HaMashal lo yishoke, the Mashal didn't keep quiet, and he sends the shliach again. V'ochein la'achar haftzorois, after many insistence, and the gzeira of the Morad Asra. The Mashal was the Morad Asra. So now he couldn't hide anymore, as much as he tried about Avram. Posach of Avram Piv, he opens his mouth, and out comes a beautiful pshat. A beautiful pshat to the Shaila that the Mashal asked. B'chochma u'b'kiyas hafle v'fela. However, he made one Tanai with the Mashal. Avram, let's remember again, the vegetable seicher makes one Tanai with the Mashal, the Mashal has to keep it beside. Not to reveal the secret that this Rabbi Avram is anything more than selling vegetables. Never to release this information or to reveal to anyone that this Rabbi Avram is much more. He's a Gavra Rabbi. And the Mashal, he kept his word and calls them on that they were together. The Mashal, very often, they would talk in learning, it would be mefalpel learning. Mashal found a appropriate, if you will, chaver or a chavrusa to talk and learning with now. And all them gobel miyoy. No one knew about this. No one knew. It was in the year 1573. In the year 1573, it was just about the time that the Mashal was about to leave this world. And the Mashal, he writes it tzavah, or orally, he gave over it tzavah. And the Mashal gives over it tzavah that when his time comes and he passes on, that they appoint a successor as Rav in Lublin, Rabbi Avram Moicher Yerokis. Rabbi Avram Moicher Yerokis, he becomes the next Rav in Lublin. Lublin was one of the most prestigious and distinguished Jewish communities of Torah, Talmidei Chachamim. Mashal writes, who's going to succeed me? Rabbi Avram Moicher Yerokis. Why? Ki ein gadol kamoyu. Says, there's no one like him. He saw the Mashal, you can realize, the people just couldn't get used to this idea. Rabbi Avram Moicher Yerokis, the one who used to buy our vegetables, he's not going to become our Mordasher, he's going to become our Rav. We're going to be able to be Mekabel Morish, be Mekabel the authority. Rabbi Avram Moicher Yerokis, it took a lot of coaxing and a lot of dwelling and a lot of haftaris. Ultimately, finally, they accepted him, this Rabbi Avram. And the Chidor writes, Mi sheyesh leleiv is Messiah the Chidor. Whoever has a little bit of leiv. Yikach Musar Haskel should learn from here. Ad kamo hatznius vo ha'anova, that the more tzniyadik a person is, the more modest he is. Not looking down on clothing, talking modest in his behavior. The more modest a person is, the more anivisdik he is. This is an emtzoi lahagia l'toy l'shmo l'chochma. This is a springboard to be able to rise to great heights in chochma and in Torah, because ultimately his Torah, there's only going to be a certain amount of time that he'll be able to hide that Torah. The Boy Shalom HaKadosh Baruch Hu will see to it that his Torah, as much as he tries, that the world will recognize and give covet to that Torah. Ki Toirosoi machrezes olov ki huram v'niso. Hashem lo yimna toiv lo hoilchem b'tomim. Because Baruch Hu will not hold back toiv to those who deserve it, just because they try to hide it. Because Baruch Hu will bring out their godless, and they'll get that which is really coming to them, that which they deserve. This is very fascinating again. It's not written by the Chidor, it seems like more like a legend. But here the Chidor writes this himself. You see again, the Koyach of Anivis, both in the area of Rabbi Yosef Karo, that he was the Godel chosen, writes the Chidor. Among all of the three Gedolim who could have written a Shulchan Aruch, the Chidor writer was given in a Shemayim to Rabbi Yosef Karo because of his Anivis, and then also from Rabbi Avram Moicher Yerokis. That he, according to the Mashal, was really the most worthy to be the successor to succeed the Marshal after he was gone. It's kedai just to mention that the Rebbe Eibshitz, the great Rebbe Eibshitz, again, who lived about 250 years ago and more, writes in a Sefer Yaris Devash. You have to realize that Rebbe Eibshitz was the preeminent Gadol Hador of his time. In spite of the fact of the situation that was between him, as you know, and Rabbi Yankiv Emden, not the place to go into it, that did not take away the fact Rabbi Eibshitz was the preeminent Gadol Hador. That's what he was. He was the greatest Rosh Yeshiva of his time, and I guess even by today's standards, because as I mentioned once, that Rabbi Eibshitz had 20,000 Talmidim. This is the way it's recorded. This is an enormous amount. Even by today's standards, with the mode of travel, it's nothing just to go across the ocean to go anywhere. Imagine those days, where do you get 20,000 Talmidim? Where do you get that many Talmidim? He was such a magnet, such a drawing force, such a tremendous Marbitz Torah. Rabbi Eibshitz. Rabbi Eibshitz writes, now here you have a Gadol Hador, the preeminent Torah scholar of his time. He writes in Yaris Devash, it's just incredible words. Every day he says that I continue to learn. Ani moisif lahakir, the more I recognize miut erki, how nothing I am. V'chesaron chochmosi, and how little I know. Ki b'chol asher efne, because wherever I turn, I always find kashis. And if there are kashis, he says, somebody thinks because you're big ilu, you have kashis. It's true, you have a big, you have kashis. But if you have kashis, it means you don't know the answer. If you don't know the answer, it means there's something like it. If you have a kasha and you have a terrorist, then you're quite in good shape. But if you have a kasha and you don't have an answer, well, that means that there's a void there. Rabbi Eibshitz said, I have a lot of kashas wherever I go. He took that to mean as a chasar. V'yodi kikotzro liyashva malochim. And my power, he says, is too weak to be able to answer all the kashas and the difficulties that I have. So what do I do? So Rabbi Eibshitz, being that I know the truth, I know the truth, how little I know. You hear what Rabbi Eibshitz says? So you know what I do? What do I do? Vani boiche umebake. I cry. Sha'ani be'enei ha'olam ketalmid chacham uvik. I cry that the world is making a mistake in me. The world thinks I'm a gadol. The world thinks that I'm a Sarah Torah. I know I'm not. I know how little I know. He's not going by comparing himself like other others. He's great. He's evaluating himself, what the Torah really is. In relation to what the Torah really is, he says, I know so little. He says, therefore, I cry because I know how little I know, and the world thinks that I am a Talmid Chacham Uvik. He says, I'm a great scholar. Most things I don't know, he says. Because I may know a lot, but most I don't know. That which I know, that is a miut of what there is to know. If they'll ask me, I will not know to answer. And according to the standards of Chazal, what does the Gemara tell us? What is the Talmid Chacham? According to the standards of Chazal, Talmid Chacham tzarech leheshiv b'koil afilu b'mesechtes kala. The Gemara says, who is a Talmid Chacham? When it's capable of answering in any mesechta. And the Gemara says, even if it's a mesechta like Mesechtes Kala, Mesechtes Kala is rather one of the smaller mesechtas, but you have to have mastery. You have to have mastery. There's not one mesechta that I can say, I know all the answers to all the kashas. There's not one mesechta that I feel that I've mastered fully. Lefari called kushel, to answer all the kashas. And therefore he says, Zehu mar hachoyle, he says, this is, he says, he called the bitter sickness. There's the bitter sickness, he says, Rabbi Eibshitz, as you know, in the Sefer Yaris Devash, which is a Sefer of Musar. In addition to being the great Talmid Chacham, the great Rosh Yeshiva, is also a tremendous Baal Musar. Today we have, these two things are separated. You have a Rosh Yeshiva who gives shiur, funds shiur, and then you have a Mashgiach, right, who gives Musar Shemusim. Rabbi Eibshitz was both. In addition to being the great Rosh Yeshiva, who gave his masterful shiurim, but at the same time, Rabbi Eibshitz also was a tremendous Mashiach, tremendous Baldarshan. So he writes, I'm the Mashiach, I'm the one who's giving Musar. Here again comes his Anivus. Not only his Anivus in the area of Lomdus, that he says he knows so little, but also in the area of Tzidkis. He says, Oili al Shivri, woe to my Sheva, to my Bruch, as we say in Yiddish. Ki gamanoichi yodea chol yeh. I know, he says, my spiritual illness, he says. Ashani kli mole busha. I'm a kli filled with busha mikaf regel vad roish ein b'mesoyin. Starting, he says, from the soles of my feet all the way up to my head. There's not one spot, he says, that is perfect. It's all. Every area of my body needs a tikkun. Here's again, it's just incredible hearing these words coming out of the Leif Torah of the true Gadol Ador of all time. Greatest Rosh Yeshiva of his time. And beyond his time. Writing these words. It's just amazing. And again, but now we understand why, in fact, they were so great. We learned from the Chidah. Because of the Anivus. This wasn't fate Anivus, this was Anivus. There was a put-on type of Anivus. It was the true attitude, Harkosh of Anivus. As the Chidah says, the one who's a Hoyle of Betomim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, will make sure that, in fact, that his Chochmah and his Torah will be Machrezes, all of the Bechutz. His Torah will shine far and will have tremendous, far-reaching Hashpos. The Balatanya, Rabbi Isaac, let me just tell you, the Balatanya was a Talmud of the Maggid of Mezrich, the Rebbe, who of course was the successor to the Baal Shem Tov in Hasidus. And he said that the Balatanya had a particular kasha that he needed to ask from his Rebbe, the Maggid. He comes to the door and he bangs on the door, knocks on the door, and the Maggid asks, who is there? And the Balatanya said, it is I. And the Maggid asks him the question over again, who is there? And the Balatanya answers again, it is I. And so this repeated itself a good few times. The Balatanya, his name was Shneir Zalman, of course, and the Maggid affectionately called him Zalmanu. It is known, you see in the letters and correspondence between the Balatanya and the Maggid, even in the letters he addresses him, Zalmanu. Zalmanu, affectionately. So he said to him, Zalmanu, he says, I want you to know that tomorrow there's going to be a bris in a neighboring village. In a neighboring village, he says, there's going to be a bris, and I would like you to be mishtatif, to participate in that Sudas mitzvah. Balatanya of Shir Zalman, he promised the Maggid that he'll go. He'll seek to make it his business to go there, even though he had no reason to go there, other than the Maggid told him he doesn't even know the people, who they are making this bris. But listen, his Rebbe, the Maggid told him, I'd like you to be mishtatif in that bris. He said to make the bris. Karchave, he goes over there, and they did not know who he was. The Baal Simcha thought that this is one of the paupers, one of the passers-by that usually pass by. You're going to have hundreds, coming by a day, and waiting for a handout, and so on and so forth. So in the eyes of the Baal Simcha Baal Bris, this is Tamayid. This is Tamayid, an Oiver Vishav, someone just a passerby, and happened to fall in by a bris. The Maisa says, okay, come in, we're making a bris. And he seats them somewhere at the end of the table. At the end of the table, like in Ish Poshet Moed, like something like they used to do. People were not machshiv. The Aniyim always had the last seat in the house. And I could put him there somewhere at the edge of the table, to the far side of the table. It turns out that at the end of the Suda, you realize that one of the silver spoons, one of the silver utensils were missing. Now the Baal Simcha knew the people he invited, those he knew, and he did not suspect them of taking it. The only person that he was choshed, that he really believed could have taken it, was the Balatanya. Balatanya is the person who does not belong with the Simcha. He's a passerby. He's someone I don't know. He probably is the one who told him. So they go over to him and the waiter. They go over to the Balatanya, and they insist that he return the spoon that he took. The Balatanya says, not I. And again, and they began to beat him. Every time they beat him, he says, not I, he says. Nishtir, not I. Finally, after really he got a good dose, the waiter couldn't take it anymore, and the waiter admitted, he couldn't see that this innocent person getting it. He said, it was me who took it. Stop hitting him. And he produced the stolen spoon from his own pocket. Balatanya goes back home, and he goes to his Rebbe, and the Rebbe asks him, did you go to the bris? He says, yes. Did you enjoy the bris? He said, no. He says, well, tell me about what happened at the bris. So he says, would you believe it that they suspected me for stealing one of the silverware there? And of course, at the end, I was exonerated. So Balatanya stands there and he hears how the Maggid responds. And the Maggid says to him as follows. Do you remember when you came the day before? Then you knocked on the door and I said, who is there? And he said, it is I. It is I. You realize the only person who is I is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Anoichi Hashem Elokecha. There's no I. Who's the I? It's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So you know what? For every time that you said I to me, you had to say not I over there. That was the master. You had to have this lesson driven home. This was the tshuva. This is the tshuva's hamishko. For every time it was gesucht ich, hast du gedacht zug nicht ich. This was the balance. This is the balance of this hanhage. But this is just very, very fascinating. Just Agav Urchid, that's the son of the Balatanya, Meroiv Anivis, would not agree to have an aliyah. Would not agree to have an aliyah by a Sefer Torah. Because why? Because he says, when I stand before the Sefer Torah, the Sefer Torah contains all the Torah mitzvahs. He says, I become bottled from Busha. How can I stand in front of the Sefer Torah when I know I have no shaykhs? I have no shaykhs in the Sefer Torah. It's like the Sefer Torah glaring, looking me in the eyes. Why are you not fulfilling what it says over here? You know when he had an aliyah? On Simchas Torah, Kol HaNorah. Kol HaNorah. That's the aliyah that he accepted to take. So again, this is a little bit of an indication, again, what the Tomer Devorah is telling us about the inyan of Anivus. Just want to mention to you, and actually we should really move on a little bit. So, let me tell you just something. When we talk about the shiur of emulating Kodesh Baruch Hu, which is the whole idea of the Sefer Tomer Devorah, which is based upon the mitzvah or the shiur of V'holachto b'drochav. There's a shiur that we have to follow b'derech Hashem. There's one important nekuda that we have to emphasize. And maybe that nekuda should have been emphasized many weeks ago. We know that there's a shiur, for example, to do chesed, regardless. There's a shiur because it says, V'ohavto l'reacha kamoicha. V'ohavto l'reacha kamoicha, clearly in the Rambam, that's mechayev, that I have to do chesed with my life. V'ohavto l'reacha kamoicha. And then there is also a second chiyuv. There's a second chiyuv of doing chesed because v'holachto b'drochav. We have to follow the ways of Hashem. In the same way that Hashem performs chesed, we also have a chiyuv to do chesed. So the question of Isai is, what is the difference between these two mechayv? What is the difference between the mechayv of doing chesed because of ahavta l'reacha kamoicha? It's not just a repeat. We mentioned many, many times. Nothing in the Torah is there being redundant. Nothing in the Torah is there repetitive. And even two words which appear to be the same, they're not the same. But there's a difference, and we once pointed out that actually the Malbim actually has a whole essay regarding all kinds of words in Lashon Kodesh which appear to be similar, and in fact they're not similar. Like ulai and pen. Ulai maybe and pen maybe. For example, Malbim would say that the difference is, when you say ulai, maybe, it's a type of an item that you wish it would happen. Ulai, maybe it will happen. Pen is maybe, not, we hope not. Pen is a shomer pen, which means pen, maybe it'll happen. In other words, we really would not like it to happen. That's the difference between ulai and pen, usually. Al-Kaponim and so on. So you have here these two mitzvahs, which are Machai ve'yit to do chesed. One is mitzvah v'hafta reach v'kamoicha, the other one is because of v'holachta b'drochav. Then Mrs. Rameir Stern once pointed out that he said that there's a big difference. V'holachta b'drochav, the emphasis, the concentration of v'holachta b'drochav is not the act of chesed. V'holachta b'drochav means to acquire a midah of chesed b'nafshe, that I become a person of chesed. In other words, v'holachta b'drochav means I have to become a person that emulates Hashem. It has to define me as a person. The way that I become an isha chesed is by doing the act of chesed. But let's say I do an act of chesed. By doing once an act of chesed, you don't become a bal chesed. How does one acquire a midah? How does one become that midah? You know how you become that midah? By doing a midah over and over again, it becomes a kinyan b'nafshe. V'holachta b'drochav means that a person should be koyin and midas chesed. That this becomes his personality. His personality becomes a rachum. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a rachum. Mahu rachum af ato rachum. Mahu chanum, the Gemara says af ato. What does it mean? It doesn't merely mean to do it. It means to become. Your personality should be a personality of chesed. The way to become the Ma'aser Chesed is merely a medium. The Ma'aser Chesed is a means to an end. Is a means to an end to become an Isha Chesed. V'hafta l'reacha kamoich, on the other hand, the mitzvah is the act of Chesed itself. It's not about acquiring midos. Is to extend chesed, to convey chesed, to do the act of chesed. And one can find that in the various Lashonis in the Rambam, in Perek Aleph, in Hilchas Deis, Halacha Vav, Halacha Zayin, as well as in Hilchas Oved, in Perek Yudalad, Halacha Aleph. And therefore, I'll give you a perfect example. The question is, let's say I do not have in front of me a person that needs an act of chesed. There's no one around me that needs chesed. Do I have a chiyuv to go out of my way to look for someone that has a void and to be able to help him? What's my chiyuv? No one is around now. It's a slow day. There's no one here who needs chesed, at least in my vicinity. Do I have a chiyuv now to go and search for someone, to find someone for whom to do chesed? Do I have to do that? The nafkim is quite poshut. Is only mechayev if he's here. In other words, the chiyuv for me to do chesed for someone who has a chesaron. Doesn't have a chiyuv to go find someone who might be in need. Doesn't say that. Says I have a chiyuv to do chesed. Means if someone is here who needs chesed. But it doesn't say I have to go looking for people who need chesed. But the mitzvah on the other hand, Tomer Devorah, means that I have to become an ish chesed. So to become an ish chesed means to do acts of chesed to acquire that midah. So Tomer Devorah basically means that I would have a chiyuv to go out of my way to try to find people, situations of doing chesed in order to acquire the midah of hatova to become a kinyan in my nefesh, to become part of my being. So this is what we find. This is the chiluk between these two mitzvahs. Although they appear to be the same, they're not the same. And quite simply, I'll tell you, if I do one single act of chesed to a person, with that act of chesed I was mekayim, I was mekayim. But by doing one act of chesed, I don't become a baal chesed. It didn't change my nature yet. So v'alachta b'drochav I wasn't mekayim. For v'alachta b'drochav I may have to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Many acts of chesed until my personality becomes transformed to becoming an ish ha-chesed. So kapon Rabbi Isai, so these are the attitudes, this is that we have to learn, this is v'alachta b'drochav, this is our chiyuv, and this is what the Tomer Devorah here is trying to teach us. So let's now begin. Let's begin now what we have here in the Tomer Devorah, again, Daf Lamed Beis, which is Hashniya. Because again, the midah Rishona, he said, was the midah of Anova, which we discussed. Now the Tomer Devorah is going to the second midah, Hashniya. In other words, the second area that we have a chiyuv v'halachta b'drochav to follow in the derech of Hashem. Now again, he uses the phrase, again, we mentioned quite a number of times that the Tomer Devorah in many areas, we, Baruch Hashem, so far did not encounter too many, so we were not troubled with it. But in many areas, he basically uses many Kabbalistic terms. And it's accepted, well, Tomer Devorah happens to be a sefer, which first and foremost it is learned in the Olam HaYeshivas of Chasidis, in the Chasidishim Mekoymis. But it's a sefer, b'chlal not limited to the Olam HaChasidis, the Olam HaYeshivas in the Litvische world, the great Balamusar, as we mentioned in the first few shiurim of the Tomer Devorah, whether it was Ralel Pian, whether it was the Alter from Kelm. Tomer Devorah was a very fundamental sefer. As a matter of fact, we also mentioned that in Lakewood, Matisyoah Solomon, in the beginning gave a whole series of shiurim on the sefer Tomer Devorah that we are learning. It's considered to be a fundamental sefer in Hanhogis Ben Odom Lachaveroi. High ideals, as we have learned throughout the weeks. Not easy, but the idea at least we should try to climb one rung of the ladder, step by step, at least to come a little bit closer to these ideals, at least to have goals. We should have goals that we set before ourselves, to know what a yid should aspire to. So many times he uses Kabbalistic terms. So one of my yeshivas used to say is that we skip over the Kabbalistic terms, and we know the chalakim that we understand. Because there's enough that in the regular Lashon Kodesh that he uses, and that's enough to bring out the message. He just supports it many times with Kabbalistic thought and Kabbalistic philosophy. But it's not contingent, the whole idea, the whole philosophy is not contingent on those Kabbalistic ideas that he presents. Here again he presents, just a little bit, Hashniya, Machshavtoi Tidme, a chiyuv of a person is that his thoughts, he's now telling us how a person should use his thoughts. You realize, Rabbi Isai, thoughts are things that many times we think is uncontrollable. Now to a certain degree it's true. Thoughts, as they say, fly into your mind. Which means I didn't bring it into my mind. Sometimes you do. But thoughts not necessarily, right, are brought into your mind by what you're doing. Of course, if you go and you look at certain things, that's going to leave a picture in your mind as well. And certainly if a person is going to use his eyes and to gaze on things inappropriately, so right away his machshavas are going to be filled with that. But we're not even talking about that. Thoughts, just in general, they just come and go. Happens during Shema Esrei a lot of times. So, thoughts come and go. These RaMaK Doshim, by the way, have pointed out, that in fact, that even if in one's mind an inappropriate thought comes, there'll be no einish for that. The einish will be if he dwells upon it and just keeps it there. Now, the avoid of a person is to try to remove it. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows how great the nisayon of each person is, and accordingly, whether he really wants to keep it, he's not interested in removing that thought, or maybe he just finds it too difficult. And what's called too difficult? Not the same. Different people have different nisayons in different areas and to a different depth, depending on the constitution of a person. So, here, the Tomer Devorah is talking about mind control. Not somebody else controlling your mind, you controlling your mind. That is the kind of mind control that the Torah is asking from you. Machshavtoi tidmeh, that your thoughts should emulate, what kind of a thought process? The machsheves hakeser. Now here again, just let's repeat again. Because last week's shiur, the Tomer Devorah spoke about the mid of keser. You might remember we had the sheet, which are based upon the illustration, the Kabbalistic illustration from the Tomer Devorah, the Esses spheres, which are the 10 vehicles of emanation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu uses in terms of being mashpia on this world. It could be either chesed, it could be gvura. But the first three, the uppermost three, are keser, chochma, and bina. Keser, chochma, and bina, and then come the seven that we have in the Yemei sphere. Chesed, gvura, tiferes, netzach, hoid, yisoid, malchus. Right? So you have 10. The first three, then 7. So as he pointed out, that the first one is called keser. The first of the 10, the uppermost high, is called keser, the crown. And the reason we call it the crown, because this is the midah that is closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it were. This is closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and basically keser represents the ratzon of Hashem. If we are able to say that type of a lotion, keser basically represents the ratzon of Hashem. So it's called keser because in the same way that a crown is worn above the head, keser refers to things that are above the human mind's ability to comprehend. So keser is something very high. But yet, we cannot fathom HaKadosh Baruch Hu's quote-unquote keser, but we try to emulate within our limited range. Within our limited range, we should try to emulate the midah of keser. That's what the Tomer Devorah here is referring to. Let's just remind the Yolim that we mentioned last week that in the world of Kabbalah, these three, keser, chochma, bina, are in fact called moichin. These three are called moichin, which means the brain. They are called the spheres harosh. They are called the spheres of the head because they represent the intelligent in human terms. And chochma, bina, and keser, which is, of course, the uppermost high. So here we go again to the Tomer Devorah. Machshavtoi tidmeh. What we're asking from a Yid, that his machshava should emulate the machsheves hakeser, the thought process of the mid of keser. So the mid of keser again, which is the highest form, which is closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, right? Which represents, we said, even the rotzen of Hashem. Our thought process within our small range, within our small being, right? But we, within our perspective, should try to emulate what HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of course, in his all-encompassing perspective. In his all-encompassing perspective. In what way? In the same way that chochma of keser, we said keser, chochma, bina. The chochma, the element of chochma which lies in keser, you know something about it? Chochma in keser, loy tifsoik, tomid, lachshoy, machshavas toivus. Chochma of keser never stops thinking good thoughts. V'hora lo yikones bo, and it allows no evil to go into it. Mipnei shehu rachmim gemurim, because it's absolute rachmim. So what do we see here? We find here keser chochma bina, that the element of chochma in keser, which is within keser, is a thought process kibiyachol of Hashem, which does not, in that area of chochma, Tomer Devorah tells us, it does not cease ever from thinking machshavas tovas and does not allow any evil to enter it. So maybe to understand that a little bit better, again, so we have to take a look at the sheet that we gave the Oilum. Let's take a look at Rabbi side. What we have here, somewhat of an explanation. And this is the first item that we have on the sheet. That is from Hagoyin Rabbi Yosef Leib Bloch of Telis. Hagoyin Rabbi Yosef Bloch of Telis, Rabbi Yosef Leib, in his sefer called Shiur Das. Very well-known series of Svarim, Shiur Das, very deep shiurim, hashkofe in torah, hashkofe machshove. And he has an area called Behiras Hadas, clarity, right? Clarity of knowledge. Bebir ha'inyan. And he comes to explain the inyan of Keser that we're talking about. V'zel l'shoyim. Inyan ha-Keser, he says, the inyan of Keser is kemoy nimtze b'sfarim ha'gdoshim. Ki ha'rotzoin bebriyas oilom, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when he had the rotzon to create the world, in a certain sense, okay? So we would like to parallel, Rabbi Yosef Leib Bloch says, the rotzon of Hashem, before he created the world, in a certain sense is like man, when he has rotzon about doing something. So we should try to understand that, and to parallel these ideas. L'saber soyisen, we have to use human terms, of course. How do we explain that Hashem's rotzon in Briyas Olam is similar to the rotzon of man when he wants to do something? Says Rabbi Yosef Leib Bloch as follows. And by the way, we spoke about this not from Rabbi Yosef Leib Bloch in one of the shiurim of Tanya. We also went through this idea. He's telling us a very thing. This is like a scientific analysis, how the thought process of the human mind works. It's just kedai just for that to understand. We don't see the steps every step of the way. We see finally the end result. This is what we want to do, so we're doing it. But how subconsciously in your mind, how your mind translated it. Now, when you want to do something, it has to be a motivation. What brought you to want to do it? You say, I want to do this. It's not stum you want to do it. There has to be something behind it that motivates you to want to do something. But sometimes you don't even realize it. It's like a reflex action that you find yourself in a situation that you want to do something. But that's not where it started from. Sometimes it's too faint or it's too far within the recesses, in the depth of one's mind, to be able to focus and to pick up on what was, as he uses the Lashon and we already used, what's called the Nekuda Ketana. Before you have a developed idea of what you really want to do, it starts out with a dot. That dot is very interesting. There's a dot in your mind, which at that time, that's the hascholah. That's the etymology. That's the beginning. That's the root. That's the root of your rotzen. When you have rotzen already, that is the outcome. That's not where it started from. Where it started from prior to the rotzen, it started in a nekuda ketana. In that nekuda ketana, let's call it a small dot. That small dot, today we can understand it, we're living in this computer age. This small dot contains in it all genetic material of the total machshava. But it has to be brought out. In other words, it starts with a dot. From that little dot, branches develop. The idea develops itself. It grows. And you think it through better and better. Right? And you develop the idea until finally you come to the conclusion of what you really want to do. And you say, this is my rotzen. But the end result of your rotzen started out with that little dot which is in the Nekuda Ketana. In the Nekuda Ketana stage, it was not developed. But it was all there. You just didn't know it yet. You didn't develop yet. You didn't use all the genetic material that's in that dot. You have to develop it and you have to bring it out. It has to grow. So this is what Rabbi Yosef Leib Bloch is explaining. Let's take a look here. Again, when it begins by a person, machshava chadosha, bitchilo, when it starts, when the new machshava starts in the beginning, he ke'ein nekuda ketano. This is really a small dot, but it's not a small dot. It's not a nothing. Think of a dot. You say, what's a dot? No. This is a small dot. It's a chip. It's a chip that has all information. Can have stored in that little chip, in that little nekuda ketana. Amazing amount of information is stored there, but you're not aware of it yet. Because it's all in that genetic form. It's all in that form. This dot, the machshava expands, and it develops into what we call later rotzen. This is what I want to do. Yeah, now you know what you want to do. But that which you want to do at the end started out from a nekuda ketana. So look what he says further. V'oz misareves ha-machshava, and then he says this machshava mixes with betavnis mesuyemis. The machshava develops itself into a particular form. The protim, right, broken down into various details. Uprotim protim, lefi oifen hatzorach, according to what is necessary. Lehoitzi lepoilos hayitzir. In other words, if I decide I want to create something, I also have to have a thought process. How am I going to create it? How am I going to do it? If I want to build a house, then in addition to wanting to build a house, part of that thought process is also how to facilitate that, how to make it happen. Where do I get the wood? Where do I get the brick from? Or maybe what type of a house do I want to build? All the various details. These are developed from that nekuda ketana that started out as a nekuda ketana without any specific information. It was capsulized. All information was condensed in that nekuda ketana, which later on emerged and developed and expanded. Okay, and similarly, listen to this, what he says now. Okay, so just like in the human mind, Rotzoin starts out, is rooted in a nekuda ketana, in that small dot. HaKadosh Baruch Hu kibiyochel, as it were. HaRotzin b'briyas olam, the Rotzin b'briyas olam, ha-nekuda ha-koileles is called ha-rotzin nikra keser. By HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that nekuda ketana has a name. In human minds, it has no particular name. We call it nekuda ketana. That small dot, that's the root. That's where everything started from. It started from that small dot that had all the genetic material, out of which you're going to develop and expand and create the final result, what you call rotzin and so on. Kodesh Baruch Hu, kibiyachol, there, before the rotzin, as it were, came out, what precedes that rotzin is also what's called a nekuda ketana, but that nekuda ketana is called keser. So that haschol, if you will, again, by Kodesh Baruch Hu, haschol, ova, hoya, hoya, vive, we're talking about again in human terms. That nekuda ketana is called keser. What comes out later is all the result of keser, is an outgrowth of keser. Keser is the nekuda ketana. So let's go further. So v'chol abriya b'proteo. So now when we look at the finishing, right, we see the finishing result. We see the finishing result of the bria. He hispashtes harotzen. That is the expansion of the rotzen, which was originally nichlal. That's the expansion of that which was nichlal b'nekuda hazois. So betavnis mesuyemis, and now it expands in a particular form. Lefi harotzen ha nichlal b'ketzer. But all of that, really, all of that was already nichlal in keser. Except it came out, it expanded, and grew out to finally what we call the end result, the end product. Now, if there is what's called an original nekuda ketana, which we call keser, says Rabbi Yosef Leib Bloch of Telos, V'sham b'keser, in that nekuda ketana, it repeats himself. That nekuda ketana, mokoim ha-nekuda, again, the nekuda ha-koileles shel harotzin, the nekuda which is the all-encompassing, because everything, right, is rooted in that seed. Everything is rooted in that nekuda, a nimtze shom rakla. You get that? In the nekuda ketana that preceded the end result of Briyas Olam, the nekuda ketana that preceded the rotzen of creating the world. That nekuda ketana, which was the little seed, if you will, is the seed of the rotzen that comes out later. But the rotzen was nichlal in that seed, because you can only grow out that which was already contained, right, in the seed. The nekuda ketana, which is the seed, which is the shiur, which is the root. In that nekuda ketana, no ra whatsoever exists. Kibriyas oilam oisharach lahetiv. Because Hashem's purpose, Lamaisa, that was His plan. We maybe change things around a little bit. But Hashem's rotzen in the nekuda ketana, starting from the very nekuda ketana, is only toiv, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu's purpose in creating was only lahetiv, to bestow toiva. So says the Arizal, as is brought down from Chaim Vital. All of B'ritzoynoi, there was oil of B'ritzoynoi, doesn't bring it here, but there's Yedua, that it was all of B'ritzoynoi to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to be mated, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. Created the world in order to be mated. La Yitzchak Yitzira, to create a Yitzir LaHashpia Shom, as ha-toiv ha-bilti tachlisi. Not stam toiv. Toiv which is without gvul, without tachlis, without end. Va-toiv ahu, and that toiv is the mokar b'yitzir sabriya. So if I were to ask you, what is a root ingredient, right, in the seed of Bria Soilum? What is a root ingredient? Right? Look at the bottle. What is the root ingredient of the seed of Bria Soilum? Toiv. The root ingredient is toiv. Now I can plant a perfectly good seed, Rabbi Isaac. I can plant a perfectly good seed. And yet, instead of the beautiful pears coming out, if I don't water it properly, if I don't take care of it properly, if the weather conditions, if I don't cover it, as greenhouse, maybe didn't know what to do, then the root may be the best of the highest quality, but it will not produce. It will not produce the type that it's capable of producing. So Mitzvah HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the seed which contains the root of Yetzirah, which contains the root of Bria Soilum, that seed is called a toiv. It doesn't mean that the end result, that the whole world is going to benefit from toiv. Even though the seed has it. Even though the Nekuda Ketana has it, as he points out further. But he goes on further, though, to say that even the ra that you find in the world, the hadinim hakoshim, hem rak behanhoge, lefi drishis hatoiv betachlis. The B'yosel block tinus, that sometimes the root is toiv. The tachlis, the goal, is toiv. But the highway, the road between the root and the tachlis may be a bumpy road. Now sometimes somebody goes on a bumpy road, but he knows he has to go through that road because that's the only road to his destination. He wants to go to an exclusive vacation spot. Just so happens that there's a lot of construction and there's a lot of headaches. So his trip is not enjoyable at all, far from it. But that's the road that's going to take him to the toiv that he's looking for. That's the pshat of the dinim. The person undergoes midas adin. The person undergoes various maybe illnesses or sicknesses. This is the road because the tachlis is to lead you to toiv. The ultimate tachlis is that through this, the end result of all the ra that a person might experience is again to meet up with toiv. It starts with toiv, it ends with toiv. The road in between to lead you to toiv might be dinim, and it might be kosher, it might be difficult, as he points out. Let's read it again. In order to be able to arrive, right, to be able to acquire that toiv, he says, these are just shvilim, these are roads. These are roads. But the idea is not to experience ra. That's not the purpose, and that's not the tachlis. That's not the intent. And the end result is you're going to have toiv. That could be. The end result is you're going to have toiv. And according to the hanhoge of Hashem, drushois, it is necessary midos shoynes. All different midos, all different type of roads. The onshim, hanidroshim, which are necessary b'shal tachlis. Look, if someone needs a refuah, he may need an operation. Now the operation is painful, but he needs the operation to arrive to the tachlis that he wants. In this case, he wants the toiv, he needs the refuah. What is the road to lead to refuah? He needs a serious operation. And sometimes, chaz v'sholom, there's amputation. But it's needed for the tachlis, for the refuah. So the dinim koshim that a person might undergo is not for the tachlis of the yisurim. The tachlis is that this should lead him to the tachlis of toiv, to the purpose of toiv. The nekuda hakolelis again, but in the original nekuda, regardless of what a person experiences later, but the nekuda hakolelis, but in this all-encompassing dot, as we said, the original dot, the keser, sham ein kol kitrug elatoiv. Ki kol inyan habriya hurak hashpoes hatoiv mahatoiv habilti tachlisi. This is what it's all about. So that, Rabbi Isaac, we can stop here, and I want you to keep the sheet for next week because there's a few more important nekudas. But don't just put it away, take it with you. So we'll be able to continue. So this is the idea, the first few lines of the Tomer Devorah, that the next shniya, the next midah that we're working on is machshava. And he starts out that in keser, that nekuda ketana that we call keser, any machshava in that nekuda ketana only deals with toiv. Any involvement in the nekuda ketana is only toiv. And therefore our tafkid, our objective, our chiyuv, within the framework of the halachta v'dracha, that our machshavas also should be doimet to what it lies in keser. What lies in keser, in that nekuda, is only toiv, there's no ra. We should also train our machshavas to be thinking only in the Toiv, and to block out and to pure ourselves from anything of Ra. And Be'ez Hashem, that way, we'll be on the road to be Mekayim, B'Holach, B'V'droch.
Amen.